Previously on Geezerology 2.0. Is that a Bill pick or a Bob pick?
That's a Bill pick.
Bill pick. Bill, after he got shut out, now he's got a sweep here. You can't take it with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Geezerology 2.0. We're back here with week 2 of our look at Best Picture winners here during Oscar month. And this week, we're going to go back to 1938 for You Can't Take It With You, which grabbed the trophy for Columbia Pictures at the 11th Academy Awards. It also got Frank Capra his third win for Best Director. Also note, this was the first time Capra and James Stewart worked together. They would go on to do 2 more. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in 1939, and It's a Wonderful Life in 1946. So, Bill, I believe you're a longtime fan of this movie, right? What do you take away from You Can't Take It With You?
Well, I think this is a great example of a couple of elements that I always have enjoyed. One is any kind of Frank Capra movie is worth watching just for the artistry that he deploys in terms of putting films together. He obviously is probably best known for that last movie that you mentioned, It's a Wonderful Life, which has been in the public domain for so long that people have seen it and associate it automatically with kind of a Christmas seasonal special. And given the actors involved in that movie, it may be for a lot of people, along with perhaps The Wizard of Oz, what they think of when they think of old movies. It's black and white and all of that. The thing about this movie, I mean, certainly people who have seen, again, It's a Wonderful Life will recognize many of the characters who are in here because of the same actors are involved. Jimmy Stewart, of course, Lionel Barrymore, who is Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, plays a completely different character in this movie. Essentially, it's one of these, boy loves girl movies, but the boy's family, who are very wealthy, his father is the head of his own bank and is quite well known for his deal-making abilities and his pursuit of, growth and profitability at all costs, and at the risk of losing everything, he proceeds in this direction. But his son, Jimmy Stewart, is not necessarily that at all. He's kind of a dreamy kind of character who immediately, as the movie kind of develops, has already fallen in love with his secretary, which happens to be played by Jean Arthur, who's one of my favorite actresses of the 30s and 40s, and she is, a perfectly normal kind of person, but she belongs to a family that is made up of all sorts of very eccentric and wacky characters, and we're introduced to them under the auspices of Grandpa, who is the head of the family, and he is played by Lionel Barrymore, and he is very I guess you would call him grandfatherly, but he's really avuncular. He's very compassionate. He's a smart guy. He knows a lot, but he's very live and let live. And so all of the people who are involved in his household, both his daughter and her husband, are they each are quirky in their own way. One is the husband works in the basement making fireworks with the guy who used to be their Iceman, who came in and never left after 8 years. And all different other characters start to, be introduced. The granddaughter, who was played by Ann Miller in one of her first movie roles, if not her first, is a ballerina. She's married to a ex-Alabama football player who's a xylophone player and a printer of all kinds of documents, because he likes to print things, and when things make sense to him, he prints them up and he sticks them in the candy boxes that she's making. It's just crazy stuff going on. So we're introduced to these people, and then we are also introduced.
And they all live in the same house.
Yes, that's important to know, Scott. You're right, because of that, there is kind of a conflict of interest that then develops because there are two things going on. One is that uh, uh, Jimmy Stewart, who his character is Tony Kirby, his father Anthony Kirby and his mother Miriam Kirby are very much straight-laced, waspy characters who are, because of their wealth and their social status, are very much opposed to this burgeoning relationship. And Stewart says that he's intending to marry Alice Sycamore, the Jean Arthur character. They do not want that to happen, particularly the mother, who is probably much more uptight than Edward Arnold, who plays Anthony Kirby. What's interesting to me about this movie is as I said, there's two dynamics. One is the love interest. The other is the notion that Kirby, the old man, as part of this deal that he is putting together, he wants to acquire this significant plot of land in the city, and he's bought up all of the properties. But there's one holdout who of course, happens to be the Lionel Barrymore grandfather character, who owns his own house and does not want to sell, and is not really aware of what's going on in the background, which is the need for Kirby to buy all this property so that he can, force his competitor out of business and maintain this kind of burgeoning monopoly in the production of ammunition and things that he wants to kind of corner the market in. So you've got these two dynamics going on. It sounds kind of confusing and sort of serious, but it's not. It's kind of a good example of an early screwball comedy. From my perspective, why I love the movie so much is that it's got all of the tropes that I'm familiar with Capra, but it's got great kind of acting, especially from an ensemble standpoint, and then kind of the Jimmy Stewart, Jean Arthur relationship. I can never get enough of Jean Arthur's approach to acting, because I think she is probably one of the actresses who you can watch her listen to the actors, talking to her, and she reacts to them without saying anything in quite a very meaningful way. It kind of blows me away. There's a kind of an extended period where Tony is trying to convince her that getting together is the right thing to do, and even though his elitist parents object, that he's going to proceed anyway, and that she is too important for him. And he's going through this whole lengthy monologue, and she is just listening to him, but you can watch her reaction as she agrees or disagrees. It's quite an interesting thing. It's a very long take. I found it fascinating. And the other relationship that is really dynamic is between Edward Arnold, who's the Anthony Kirby character, who's the uptight, profit-driven guy, who eventually comes to really respect and listen to Lionel Barrymore, who he asks for advice, and in the end, the advice comes down to, if you've got a problem, why don't you play the harmonica and think about it for a while, and you'll find that most of your problems kind of go away. And out of the whole scenario, as you can imagine, again, being a Capra movie, everybody comes together. The marriage is going to go ahead with the blessing of the Kirbys, both mother and father. And Mr. Kirby himself realizes the error of his ways and kind of, reverses the decisions about buying everybody's property, and everything works out to the best way of, Hollywood's imagining. But, as far as I'm concerned, it's a great bit of comedy with a nice bit of messaging that, flies by very quickly. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of those movies that I can watch almost anytime I see it on TV.
Yeah, this is definitely an ensemble. This isn't like many old movies where there's one who is built around one star, right? I think this was probably early in James Stewart's career, and he doesn't even get top billing here. Jean Arthur gets top billing here. It's not, and it doesn't mean that Jean Arthur is the central character. She's not. I don't know if you can say there's really any central character. This is definitely an ensemble movie. But what's your take on You Can't Take It With You? Did you take it with you?
Um, some of it, yes, some of it, no. There are a lot of points that Bill made that I do agree with. Um, Frank Capra was probably one of the most prominent filmmakers of the 30s and 40s and did some incredible stuff. Um, and this movie has a lot of Capra's themes. Capra was big on the little guy, the everyman who, wins out over adversity based on his innate goodness and such. And that was kind of a Capra theme. And this movie certainly has that. Um, my problem with it, this is the first time I'd ever seen the film. I've seen a lot of other Capra films, but for some reason I had never seen this one. So I started watching it, and I thought the first half of the film really dragged. But about halfway through the film, it really kind of kicked into gear for me. And it started really when the very uptight, waspy, rich family comes to the house full of all of these zany characters. And from that point forward, for me, the film got a lot better. And I think the courtroom scene after everybody has been arrested was just incredible. I love that part of it. So the first half of the movie, it dragged for me because I think because they were setting up all of these characters, and you got introduced to all the zany members of this family. And then we had to go through the backstories of the industrialist and all of his machinations to come up with this monopoly. And then we had to set up, the love affair between Jimmy Stewart and his secretary. So once we got past all of those setups, I really think this movie got much, much better. And so the second half of it actually enthralled me. Wonderful dialogue, zany characters, and once all of these different little plot points come together, great film for the second half.
That scene in the when Jimmy Stewart brings his parents to the house, and he does it intentionally. They set up a dinner date for everybody to meet the parents as sort of an early template for like something like Meet the Fockers, right? But but then Jimmy Stewart, as it turns out, he does this intentionally. But he brings his parents over on the night before that they had scheduled this dinner date because he decided that he wanted his parents to meet them when they weren't all on their best behavior. He wanted his parents to see all these crazy people when they were being their normal crazy self, right? But that scene when they're in that house and everybody's meeting for the first time, that scene, that about 15 minutes there, that's worth the price of admission alone. That was, man, I had such a great time with that. It was so funny, and it was just so chaotic with all these goofy people just running around doing their goofy things all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know, go ahead, Bob.
That was where the movie kicked into high
Yeah,
gear.
yeah. It did
That
for me
point
too. I
on.
didn't. I wasn't as I was a little better with the lead up to it than you were. I didn't have too much of a problem. It kind of dragged in spots. There was a couple times I was thinking, well, let's get with it, but it was okay. But mostly when they were in the house introducing the crazy family, I enjoyed that. Uh, I got a little tired of all the stuff in the bank, and when they were trying to do this business deal, and that got a little long, I think. But you're right. But yeah, that scene where they all show up and everybody's in the same place and in the same house. That is when the movie really picks up, and that scene is just fantastic. And yeah, again, I also agree that the courtroom scene was great. The stuff was funny in the jail. I thought it was funny. I was sitting there going, because the guy starts playing his harmonica and everybody starts singing while they're all in jail. And all these people are all in the same jail cell. All the men are in one jail cell and all the women are in a different jail cell. But anyway, the guy pulls out a harmonica and they all start sitting around singing. I'm sitting there going, why in the world? How does this guy have a harmonica in a jail cell? And then Jimmy Stewart starts smoking, and then another guy has a cigar, and they start smoking. So all this crowded jail cell, and I thought, well, this is back in 1938. They probably weren't so quick to take things away from people before they put them in jail back then. But I thought that was really odd. I just fell on the floor every time. There were two or three of them in the crazy house that all of a sudden would disappear in the basement, and they were manufacturing big old giant fireworks down in the basement of the house, and every once in a while they'd set off one of these rockets and start going lighting up the sky and big explosion and everything like that. Every time that happened like two or three times, I just fell on the floor laughing. That was so funny.
And well, the whole thing too with the fireworks is that the FBI or the G-men have been following the printer, the football player's deliveries. He's delivering the candy that his dancing wife makes, and because he likes printing things up, anytime he hears a good phrase, he prints it up and he sticks it in the candy box. And so the G-men have found these candies being delivered that have all of these kind of proto-communist sayings, like, the red flag is flying, or Viva the Revolution, or things about, this kind of stuff. And then when they come to the house, they go in the basement and it's crammed full of gunpowder.
Yeah. Well, that's what they got him on, because gunpowder was illegal.
Right. So that's how they end up all in jail. But of course,
that's how they all end up.
Explosions go off first. It's crazy.
That was really funny. And the ballerina, she's just dancing, she's just flitting around doing her dance moves all the time around the house. And it's a very crowded house with all these crazy people, and she's just kind of moving in and out of them and just kind of doing her dance moves. I just laughed every time I saw that. And near the end of the movie, I finally figured out who it was. There's another one where I go, that guy, I recognize that guy, but I can't figure, the guy who playing the xylophone. Finally figured out that was Dub Taylor. That was Dub Taylor back when he was a young man and he had dark hair,
Good God, when I was watching the credits on it, I went, Dub Taylor.
Yeah.
Because I know the old Dub Taylor.
Yeah. Well, I kept going. I saw something there that was just striking a chord, with me, like I did a few weeks ago with Seth Green and Radio Days, right? I'm going, I know that, and I finally figured out, because I think at one point I recognized his voice, or something he said. I recognized the inflection in his voice. I thought, oh, that's Dub Taylor. Which I thought was pretty funny. But he's all the time. He's got a xylophone set up in the living room, and all these people are around. There's a one part he's got a xylophone set up there, and he just starts playing the xylophone while his wife is dancing, and other people are downstairs shooting off fireworks, and and the patriarch, the guy sitting there playing his harmonica and singing songs. It's like, I just thought that was hilarious. Bill, what's your rating?
I'm giving it a 4.
Giving it a 4?
Mm-hmm.
Bob?
3.5.
3.5? I'm going 3.5 also. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I couldn't quite get it to a 4. It wasn't in that it wasn't in that blow me away territory that have to be to get me into a 4, but it was quite enjoyable. Anything else on your mind?
Yeah, I got a question for Bill. Obviously, you know this film much better than the other two of us. So the elder Kirby, this banker and industrialist, he and his cronies are trying to get a monopoly, it seems like, on munitions. This film came out in 38, the 1 year before
Mhm.
War II officially erupted. So is it safe to assume this was some commentary from Capra about what everybody knew was coming? The munitions and the war and the fascism and all of that. Is that a safe assumption?
I think yes, to a certain extent, probably more an issue that, for things to improve in the American economy, uh, manufacturing had to improve, and that was one of the areas where, there had been some kind of relapsing. Uh, when the New Deal started, there was a brief kind of improvement of the economy overall, and then it sort of bumped along for a while. And I think there was a lot of talk and action by the both the Roosevelt administration and Congress to start to look at increasing defense spending, which still was very controversial. So I'm not sure. It's probably more just a topic that was in the air than a kind of a political point per se. I mean, to me, the more interesting thing was the monopolistic approach of anything. So, an industry that, he had gone down to Washington and he got this contract. And I guess in that case, it was a government sanctioned monopoly approach. So all he was trying to do to kind of lock in that monopoly was to force his major competitor in that arena out of business by buying up all of the land around his munitions place or wherever he was going to build a munitions manufacturing location. It's interesting, what you guys had noted about the slow pace of the first part of the film. It was based on a George S. Kaufman Moss Hart play, and the play didn't have that part in it. It had, the love interest, and it had, the dynamics revolving around, greed versus happiness and that kind of setup. But it wasn't the extent of this whole thing about the house, and the monopolistic approach was much more diminished. And there were things that were left out of the movie that were also in the play. So it was kind of a trade-off. And from what I understood, the notion that detail was provided was in part because a movie requires more running time. So it was, it had to be longer than the play apparently would have been. And then also for character development, there had to be at least a kind of glancing understanding of what all of these different characters represented. And there's so many characters, and everybody does have a backstory that, even to talk about how they got into this house, why are they here, and what is compelling them to stay, and what appears to be a crazy house has to at least be enumerated in a way that the audience would understand.
I thought there was some commentary in here also. Now, it wasn't necessarily overt, but Capra was a champion of the underdog, of the little guy. And there's one scene where Grandpa is having an exchange with the elder banker, and he asks about, well, what do you think about the economy and all of that? And he says, well, what about unemployment? And the banker goes, well, unemployment's not the issue. So to me, that was a commentary of this rich guy just dismissing the fact that we're still in the Depression. And 25, we had 25% unemployment, but he's like, yeah, I don't care if people don't have a job.
Okay, well, join us next week and we'll have another look at another Best Picture winner. Next week on Geezerology 2.0. What's coming up next week, guys? I know it's not something that Bill picked because he's already had a sweep. He's 2 for 2. So let's see what we're going to do. We're going to have a look at The French Connection. Gene Hackman won Best Actor for this, William Friedkin, back in 1971. And that'll be next week on Geezerology 2.0. So long, everybody. Did you enjoy this video? If so, please smash that subscribe button and drop a comment to let us know what you think about the movie we just discussed. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Geezerology 2.0.